Thank you, co-facilitators. I am Emilia Reyes, and I'm speaking on behalf of Equidad de Género, Ciudadanía, Trabajo y Familia, and the CSO FfD coordination mechanism. The ecological crisis requires structural and multilateral solutions. The overshoot of 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries and the risk of going over tipping points is real, and there is a need to address the links between the current economic system and the ecological harm we are witnessing. A sole focus on economic growth without a proper human rights, ecological, and social assessment will continue to be detrimental to our territories, our people, and ultimately our economies. In the same manner, we see an opportunity in the FfD process to go beyond GDP and to shape a global financial frameworks to be human rights-centered, decolonial, anti-racist, feminist, and development-oriented. We expect the 4th FfD conference to promote structural and systemic reforms in the global economic and financial architecture to focus not only on closing the financial gaps, but on tackling the root and cause of all the ecological crises. Unfortunately, we don't see those types of proposals in the zero draft. Moving forward, it is of utmost importance to align and harmonize the FfD agenda with existing commitments around environmental integrity in relevant United Nations entities and treaties, which are all needed to ensure that the Earth system remains within the safe space of planetary boundaries. Principles agreed under those treaties should be integrated in a cross-cutting manner, such as the right to development, which is needed to consider as a core principle in para 52b to expand sovereignty, self-sufficiency, and autonomy of developing countries regarding the use of resources, land, energy, labor, technology, and time. Other principles, such as CBDR, polluter pays, equity, and fair share, should be explicitly mentioned across the FfD outcome whenever a reference of the climate and environmental crisis are mentioned. The primacy of public finance should be ratified for ecological and climate finance. Public finance can ensure ecological and climate planning and implementation that is science-based. The private sector and even the IFIs have not been up to the task of delivering environmental sound results. Quite the opposite. In the case of the IFIs, they impose austerity measures which hamper women's human rights and climate and ecological action. IFIs mostly deliver loans, increasing the already high debt levels in the global south. And in the framework of an institutional reform, they are considering increasing their lending, which, if not concessional, will not solve the climate and ecological crisis, and obviously will make the debt crisis even more sound. It is worrisome that 2/3 of public climate finance is being delivered through them. They are also using public finance to de-risk private investments, while we know that the private sector is not interested in funding adaptation, loss and damage, or climate resilience if they don't receive profit. So they are not the silver bullet to close the financial gap and to reach the trillions needed. Considering the limitations of the UNFCCC climate finance, it is important to think of other alternatives to find rapid and efficient ways to mobilize resources, like debt relief from bilateral and multilateral creditors, tax instruments, and the new allocation of special drawing rights for the climate agenda and the SDGs. The governance within the IFIs also need to be reformed. It is an obligation of most polluter countries to repay their historical climate and ecological debt. And it is of utmost importance to start a process of degrowth of the industrialized country to tackle this environmental crisis. FfD should set the bar to go beyond solidarity between North and South to focus on reparations, accountability, and justice. Finally, civil society insists that the FfD negotiations cannot happen behind closed doors. We expect that we will have clarity on modalities of engagement in the negotiations leading up to Sevilla with a confirmation of democratic participation, transparency, and